Quick tool tech tip with Tekton socket wrenches here. This is my new socket set, but I wanted to go ahead and make the distinguishing point. I've made it before in passing in a couple of videos, but 6-point sockets versus 12-point sockets. For the last probably 8 or so years, I basically just had this $35 Cobalt socket set that I got from Lowe's or Home Depot. These are 12-point sockets. Now, of course, the 12-point socket is described by the fact that you got 12 little points in the star-shaped pattern there. Now, of course, most bolts are going to be a 6-sided hexagon. So what happens is those little notches, they're only going to grip the corners of the bolts. Now, they're perfectly functional for an average person. I've done quite a bit of automotive repair with these 12-point sockets, but I have ran into sections where bolt heads get rounded off, the corners end up getting ground off, and then you can't catch it with the wrench. Sometimes you end up having to drill it out. Sometimes you end up having to find another wrench, use a vice grip or something like that to finally break it free. But I finally decided that I had had enough, and I got some 6-point sockets. So this is a Tekton set, which as far as I know, they're really only available on Amazon. This is a much larger kit than what I have here. This was $125, but I figured it was worth the upgrade. So I wanted to give a quick example here. This is a 10mm 12-point socket from my Cobalt set. So this is the cooling fan and the fan clutch off of my 2004 Nissan Xterra. There's some 10mm bolt heads that hold the fan, the plastic fan blades and everything, to the actual clutch itself. And with the normal 10mm bolt and the 12-point socket, probably can't tell, but it's just slipping on the bolt head. So it's not even grabbing it, not even able to break it free. Probably see on the corners that they're starting to chip away at some of the metal on the corners, and there's just nothing for it to grab anymore. So the same size socket in this Tekton set, it's 6 sides, so it fits the fastener perfectly. The downside of having 6 sides is that you have to have it more precisely lined up with the bolt head, because there's only one way, or I guess 6 ways, that the socket will actually fit on the bolt head, whereas when you got a 12-point socket, you actually got 12 positions of the ratchet. So if you're in tight quarters, you might end up having to maybe like rotate the socket just a little bit to get the hexagon to line up the way that you need it on the hexagon, but that's really only the downside. If you look in the corners here, it's actually a little bit rounded out in the corners because it's actually designed to put the pressure on the actual flat sides of the hexagon. So I'm hoping that with this 6-sided socket, I'll be able to take this bolt out. Well, it's definitely not slipping, but now I'm going to need something that actually resists the torque of the wrench to be able to get the bolt out, but it's definitely not slipping at all. Well, that bolt head is definitely wedged in there. I'll be able to get it out with some vice grips or a hammer and kind of knock it out, knock it through the backside there. But this is an excellent example of how much more grip you get with a 6-sided socket. But it's definitely worth it to look at some 6-point sockets. Not even specifically Tekton brand, they got Craftsman at Lowe's as well. They got 6-point sockets there, and even like the Husky and Cobalt, they do have versions that are in the 6-point sockets. So definitely look for 6-point sockets. So here's another example of some 10mm bolts that 12-point sockets don't quite cut it. Now these break free pretty easily. I've had these undone, but I'm just trying to move the throttle cables real quick to show you guys something. But this section right here, I have a video of removing the entire upper intake manifold plenum here, but this is just the highest point in the coolant system, so that's where you can bleed air through. And my bolt head right here, this is a 12-point socket. It's just going to round out and strip out that bolt head. Now I am trying to extract this bolt, that way I can just pour coolant in from the top and vent the air out. So my guess is that this bolt's either going to come free pretty easily, or I'm going to just break the head off. But let's see. The 6-point sockets definitely have significantly more grip. That was very easy. So this Cobalt socket set is going to be turned into my truck tools. That's usually what I do as I upgrade my garage tools. My garage tools become my truck tools, and my old truck tools either be given to someone else that has no tools at all, or they just stay in a backup somewhere in another vehicle. So these are going to go into the truck. And I will say too that Tekton has a decent reputation from what I've read online, and I've got a couple of their different tools. This swivel ratchet I specifically bought when I was doing my camshaft a while ago, and that was so I could get to the backer bolt on the back of the camshaft. Definitely seems pretty high quality. And I also got impact sockets here, and I really like the quality of these. I like that they got kind of the laser etching so you can easily read and see what size it is, and of course impact sockets are almost always going to be 6-point. So I really like those. But definitely, if you're looking for a socket set, I would look for 6-point sockets. You will save a lot of frustration with rounding bolt heads off. I mean, that was just so easy to get those 2 bolts, and those have been stuck for a while, and I've had to work around them and basically try and not have to undo those bolts. But that was super easy. Now you just got to worry about the next thing, which is that now that you have so much grip, is don't break the heads off of the bolt. That's going to be another pain to deal with as well. So as always, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video on tech tips with Tekton tools. 6-point sockets, definitely, it's an upgrade that I waited way too long to get.